Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are really getting into the details of a specific immigration pathway. It's the one for Claresholm, Alberta, the Rural Community Immigration Pilot, or RCIP. We've gathered quite a bit of material, official community info, news reports, the usual mix. And our mission today, to basically cut through all that, pull out the key stuff, and really understand how this Claresholm pilot works, who it's for, basically give you the essential rundown.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember right from the start, these community pilots are very specific. They're tailored. They're meant to address the unique needs of these rural places like Claresholm. It's not just a one-size-fits-all federal program.
Right. So let's unpack it then. What exactly is this Claresholm RCIP?
Essentially, it's an economic immigration program. It falls under a bigger federal umbrella. There are 14 communities involved overall, but Claresholm runs its own version. And the sources make it really clear the main goal is tackling local labor shortages. They want skilled workers who plan to stick around, settle down long term.
So it's more than just filling a job for a year or two.
Absolutely. That long-term commitment is central. The whole point is to build up the local workforce, make it stable, and help the community grow by bringing in people who want to actually live there.
And this provides a way to get permanent residence.
That's the big carrot, yes. It gives eligible workers a clear path to apply for PR. And something the sources highlight, which is pretty valuable if you get the community recommendation, you can often get an LMIA-exempt work permit.
LMIA exempt, so that avoids the labor market impact assessment.
Exactly, which can, really speed things up for getting the work permit while the PR application is processed. It cuts out a potentially long step for the employer.
Got it. Okay, so where does this apply geographically? Is it strictly the town limits of Claresholm?
It's a little broader than just the town itself. It covers the town of Claresholm, obviously, but also a 25-kilometer radius around it. The sources specifically call out the hamlet of Granum and the town of Stavely as being inside that zone.
Right. And what if a business or the job location is just, say, 26 kilometers out?
Then they're out of luck for this specific pilot. The materials are quite firm. You have to be within that 25-kilometer boundary. They even suggest using an online map tool. Set Claresholm as the center, draw a 25-kilometer circle, and see if the address falls inside. Outside that, not eligible for the Claresholm RCIP.
Okay, clear enough. Let's talk numbers then. For 2025, how many spots are actually available?
For this year, 2025, Claresholm has a total allocation of 30 recommendations they can issue under the pilot.
30? For the whole year? How do they, manage that? Is it just a mad dash in January?
No, they've structured it. The plan, according to the sources, is to release 4 allocations each month. And if, say, only 3 get used in May, that leftover spot doesn't just vanish. It gets carried forward, rolled over, and can be used later in the year, probably towards the end. Keeps things steadier.
Okay, 4 a month, rolling over. Now, this is where I saw some really specific details. Are there limits on which industries can grab those spots?
Yes, and this is really important. There's a hard cap on the sales and services industry. Only 6 allocations for the entire year can go to jobs in that sector.
Only 6 total for sales and services.
Right. And even within that tiny number, there's another layer. A maximum of 2 allocations can be used for jobs in the fast food subsector.
Wow. Okay. That's super specific.
It really shows they're trying to fine-tune it based on, what they see as the most critical needs versus maybe areas where they have other concerns.
That makes sense. Now, the term employer-driven program comes up again and again. What does that mean in practice for the employer and for someone looking for a job?
It means the employer is really in the driver's seat here. First, an employer has to apply to the community itself to become designated, approved to participate. And to get that designation, they have to tick a bunch of boxes, prove they're a real business, operating locally for at least 2 years, doing most of their work, like 75% within that 25-kilometer zone we mentioned. Plus, they need to do some training on the program and, crucially, commit to helping the newcomers settle in.
And I recall reading that a really big part of getting designated is proving they actually need a foreign worker. They tried hiring locally first.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
They have to show evidence proof that they've actively and consistently tried to hire Canadians or permanent residents for that job, but couldn't fill it. It's meant to ensure the pilot is genuinely filling gaps, not just, bypassing the local workforce.
Okay. So once an employer is designated, do they then go out and recruit someone new? Or can they use this for someone already working for them on, say, a temporary permit?
Both are possible. They can definitely recruit new skilled workers from abroad or elsewhere in Canada. Or, and the sources mention this is quite common and seen as a good retention tool, they can use the pilot to support a permanent residence application for an existing temporary foreign worker they already employ. Especially, given challenges like finding housing in Claresholm, retaining good staff they already have is a big plus for employers.
Right, that makes sense. Okay, so if you're a potential applicant listening, and this sounds interesting, how do you find out which employers are actually part of this and looking for people?
The main channel, according to everything we read, is the Canada Job Bank. Designated employers who have allocations available and are actively recruiting new people through the pilot are required to post those jobs on the job bank.
So search the Canada Job Bank, filter for Claresholm area jobs.
Pretty much. And the advice is also to check that job bank posting against the official list of designated employers that the Claresholm Economic Development folks publish, just to be sure it's legitimate.
The sources, we had even listed a few employers and whether they were hiring new people or not as of early June 2025.
Yeah, they did. It gave examples like Structural Precast, CFI Flight Academy, Tim Hortons. They were listed as hiring, meaning looking for new applicants via the pilot. But then others like El Molino, A&W, Casa Roma, Antray, Roy's Place, they were listed as not hiring, meaning they were likely using their pilot spots for current employees already working there on temporary permits, not seeking new external candidates through the RCIP stream at that moment. And the guidance was very clear. Don't contact the not hiring ones looking for a job under this pilot. They just weren't recruiting that way then.
Okay, that's a really practical distinction. So let's say you find a designated employer. They are hiring. You get a job offer. What about the requirements you need to meet, the federal ones?
Right, so there are several key federal criteria you, the worker, have to satisfy. First up is education. You need at least a Canadian high school diploma or its equivalent from another country. And if your schooling was outside Canada, you'll need what's called an Educational Credential Assessment, an ECA. It's basically a report confirming your foreign credential is valid and equal to a Canadian one.
Okay, education check. What about work experience?
Yep, you need work experience. At least 1 year of full-time paid work experience or the equivalent amount if you worked part-time. This experience has to have been gained within the last 3 years, and it needs to be in an eligible occupation, what they call a NOC tier category, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
Tier. That's the classification system for jobs, right?
Yeah.
Training, education, experience, responsibilities.
Exactly. It covers everything from management jobs down to labor roles. And critically, your work experience must be relevant to the actual job offer you got in Claresholm.
Now, this brought up a question for me. Some other immigration programs have exemptions for international students who graduated in Canada. Does Claresholm have that?
That's a definite no, according to the sources. They're very explicit. Claresholm does not qualify for that work experience exemption for international graduates. The reason given is simple. There aren't any eligible public post-secondary schools within the pilot's geographic boundaries. So everyone needs that 1 year of work experience, no exceptions mentioned.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Language skills, I assume that's a must.
Absolutely essential. You have to take an approved language test, English or French, and meet the minimum Canadian language benchmark, the CLB score, required for your specific job's tier level. And the sources really stress this. It's not an average score. You have to meet the minimum CLB level in each skill. Reading, writing, listening, and speaking. All 4.
Right, hit the minimum on every single one. Okay. And settlement funds. Proof of funds.
Yes, that's required if you're not already legally working in Canada when you apply for your permanent residence. You need to show you have enough money to support yourself and your family when you first arrive. The amount is based on family size, calculated as 50% of the low-income cutoff for rural areas, and it changes yearly. Interestingly, the Claresholm folks don't verify this themselves. You just have to attest you have it. And then IRCC, the Federal Immigration Department, checks it later during the PR process.
I see. And linking back to the start,
Sure.
the intention to actually live there.
Yeah, that's a core requirement, too. You have to genuinely demonstrate that you plan to live and work in the Claresholm community for the long term.
Oh, and if you're applying from inside Canada, you also need to have valid temporary status, like a work permit or visitor visa when you apply.
Okay. So given they're trying to fill specific gaps, what kinds of jobs are they targeting? What are the priority sectors and occupations?
The community actually defines these priorities each year based on what they need most. The sources laid out several key areas they were focusing on.
Like healthcare.
Healthcare,
Yeah.
definitely. They listed things like nurse aides, RNs, registered nurses, and LPNs, licensed practical nurses. Specific NOC codes were provided for each.
And manufacturing sounded like a big one, too.
It did seem prominent, Roles like machine operators, laborers in food and beverage processing, also construction trades like concrete finishers, carpenters, and interestingly, even aerospace jobs showed up: aircraft mechanics, aerospace engineers, so quite a range within manufacturing.
What about fields like law or education? Those were mentioned too. Things like administrative officers, uh, education assistants, flight instructors probably linked to that flight academy maybe,
Could be.
and early childhood educators as well.
Agriculture.
Yes, specifically mentioning specialized livestock workers and farm machinery operators.
And then sales and services, but remembering those really tight gaps we talked about.
Exactly. Within sales and services, the only priority jobs listed were chef and cook. That's specifically for full-service restaurants, not fast food. And then food service supervisor, but that one was listed only for the fast food subsector.
So you really have to match not just the job title, but the specific industry subsector they've listed it under. You can't be a cook in a fast food place under this priority list.
That's exactly how it reads. The sources were quite emphatic. The NOC code has to match the industry it's listed under. Your job offer, the actual duties, have to fit that specific context. They even mention using a scoring grid during the assessment, and jobs in these priority areas get more points.
Okay, that makes sense. So, right, you have the offer, you meet the criteria. How does the application actually get to the Claresholm community? Who sends it in?
This goes back to that employer-driven piece. It's crucial.
Okay.
You, the candidate, don't send anything directly to the community at this stage. The employer handles it. They request the application package from the Claresholm Economic Development Organization. Then they work with you to fill it all out and gather the documents. And then the employer is the one who actually submits the completed package to the community office during one of those monthly intake windows.
So the employer is the gatekeeper for the community application stage.
Precisely. Then the community team, the EDC coordinator, and a review committee, they assess everything. They check if you meet the federal rules, if the job fits their priorities, how you score on their grid.
Hi.
If they approve you and have an allocation spot available, they issue an official community recommendation to you, the candidate.
Yeah, okay. And then what happens?
Then you take that community recommendation and you submit your full application for permanent residence directly to the federal government, to IRCC. IRCC does its own checks, medical, security, verifying everything, and they make the final decision on your PR and also on that LMIA-exempt work permit application if you submitted one.
Right. It's a multi-step process.
Yeah.
Now, assuming someone gets through all that and arrives in Claresholm, what kind of support systems are there?
The sources mentioned a few things. There's an organization called Willow Creek Immigrant Services that offers free help with settlement, finding housing, schools, healthcare info, workshops, that kind of stuff. There's also a volunteer group, the Welcoming Claresholm Committee, that tries to help newcomers feel part of the community through events. And importantly, the designated employers themselves are expected to help out, connecting workers to services, creating a welcoming workplace. Part of their agreement.
Okay. Now, this is really important for anyone considering this. What about money changing hands? Fees, potential scams?
The sources were very strong on this point. They state clearly it is absolutely illegal for an employer or a consultant working for them to charge a candidate any money for a job offer or an interview or for help with this pilot application.
So just to be crystal clear.
Yeah.
You should never pay an employer to get a job offer through this RCIP.
Never. Absolutely not. If an employer asks for money, that's a huge red flag.
What should someone do if that happens?
Report it immediately. The sources gave an email, ada@claresholm.ca, to contact the community directly if an employer tries to charge you, or if you experience any kind of abuse or fraud. You can also report it straight to IRCC, the federal department, and they even mention you can do that anonymously if you need to. And they actually built in a protection, it seems. If an employer gets caught doing something wrong, like fraud, and lose their designation, your PR application as the candidate doesn't automatically get refused. It gets put on hold, and you're given a chance to find a new job offer with a different eligible employer in Claresholm to keep your application going. They also mention applying for a vulnerable open work permit as a possibility in those situations.
That's actually quite reassuring. Shows they're thinking about protecting the applicants, too.
Yeah, it suggests a focus on the integrity of the program.
So this Claresholm RCIP is the only option for immigrating to Alberta, especially rural Alberta?
No, the sources made sure to say this is just one pathway, and it might not suit everyone. They briefly mentioned the province's own program, the Alberta Advantage Immigration Program, AAIP, as another main economic route. And they basically advise people to check the main IRCC website, too, for all the other federal and provincial options available across Canada.
Okay. And just quickly, are there specific fees just for this RCIP community part of the process?
Yes, the documentation mentioned fees for the rural community immigration pilot, starting from $1,525. That would likely be for the community assessment stage, separate from any later federal application fees to IRCC. When you pull all this together, it's really quite something. You see this intricate system designed for one specific small community. It really tries to directly connect their specific documented labor needs with finding and keeping skilled people, putting a lot of the onus on local employers to make it work.
It really highlights how tailored and, frankly, complex these local pilots can be. It's not a simple process. So, thinking about all this, it leaves you, the listener, with a question, doesn't it? How well can these very localized, very employer-focused programs truly balance the economic goal of filling jobs with the much more complex human side of migration, integration, and building a long-term community? It's a fascinating balancing act.